We bring on Edwin Walker and talk about it because, the left is apoplectic about what has happened, and they're trying to use it to grab our guns again. Edwin Walker, of course, a native Texan, earned his bachelor's degree at the University of Houston, right here in town. He licensed attorney for 21 years, partnered with Walker and Byington program attorneys for Texas Law Shield, a Texas legal services company devoted to firearms law. Law practice concentrates on firearms and self-defense issues across the great state of Texas. Edwin, welcome back to the Voice of Texas.
Hello, it's great to be back.
Shooting number one up in Washington State, and this was a school shooting. A young man who apparently had a disagreement over, some are saying it was over a girl, walks in and shoots some of his closest friends with a pistol. Now, the left really ticked off by this because it wasn't one of those menacing-looking rifles that they call assault rifles, which don't exist. It's not a real term. But they were very upset that it was a handgun. And, boil this down for me. For me, these school zones that are gun-free zones are basically killing zones. And for me, what I want to see is more armed presence by law enforcement on some of these campuses, or retired law enforcement to basically dissuade these kids from doing this kind of thing.
Well, that certainly is, that obviously would help. And, the Texas legislature responded to that last year by creating the school marshal program and by, creating an avenue whereby these schools could allow armed individuals to provide security on the campuses and even though it was perfectly allowable before, even though the Texas law says, you cannot bring a firearm into a school building, there were provisions where schools could allow folks with firearms to come in with school authorization, and obviously they had the ability to hire security guards or get their own police force or even allow teachers with CHLs to carry on campus. So these avenues were available to schools prior to last legislative session. But the Texas legislature said, look, even if you don't get it, we're going to make it even easier. Now we're going to create the school marshal program whereby you can feel better about allowing somebody on your campus. But yeah, that's the thing about it is the school shootings all have one thing in common, is that clearly, the shooting was done in a place where firearms are prohibited by law. And so all these shootings have criminal acts involved in them, even prior to the very first shot being fired.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
All of the gun control measures did nothing to prevent any of these shootings. Yet, you're right, the left will stand up and scream that this is why we need more laws and more laws, even in the face of the fact that multiple laws were already broken before the shooter even took the first shot.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It needs to be reinforced. What Edwin just said, folks, is that it is against the law to take a gun into a school and shoot up your classmates. When you're a criminal, by very definition, criminals do not obey the law. And so when you're partaking in a criminal activity, the laws don't mean anything. So what do you need to do? It's the old axiom. You stop a bad guy with a gun with a good guy with a gun. And I remember was it Argyle School District up in North Texas there, Edwin, that basically put out a sign, and this is what we need to do, folks. We need to advertise that our schools are no longer gun-free zones, but they are gun-toting zones with people who are willing and able to use them. And you need to put out signs in front of the school saying, just like Argyle ISD did, saying, look, if you have mischief planned for our school, understand that some of our staff is armed and we will use them to defend our kids, period. And that's the message that needs to be sent, in my view.
You're absolutely correct. Because there's nothing gained, no bad guy intent on hurting somebody ever stopped because a sign said no guns allowed.
Now let's turn to the one in California. This one did involve one of those scary weapons that the left so passionately calls them assault weapons, which they don't exist. AR-15 is a semi-automatic weapon. It's a rifle pattern. What is it? The M4 is what is it patterned after the military version?
Yeah, well, the M4 is the military version.
Yeah, the M4. Okay, got it. So this one was conducted in California, and cops were shot with this AR-15. And the left went crazy and nuts, and then all of a sudden they found out the shooting happened courtesy of an illegal immigrant, somebody who had been deported twice out of the country and allowed back in, and then all of a sudden the left went quiet.
You're right, and the thing is that I have not seen this incident reported by any major media. The only place I've seen it was local news. The local Sacramento News reported it, but it hasn't been on the Today Show. It hasn't on CBS Nightly News.
Nope. What I find delicious about this, Edwin, is that you get the idea of the progressive liberal pecking order. That, guns are evil unless they're in the hands of an illegal immigrant, then it must be the oppressive West that did it. I mean, it's crazy.
And the thing about it, this guy, obviously, under the gun control laws, there's absolutely no way that he should have had a gun. He was illegal because illegals are not allowed, illegal aliens are not allowed to possess firearms. That's against the law. He was a felon. He'd been convicted of a felony in Arizona. That's against the law. He was a fugitive because he'd already been deported twice, and he knew that if he was caught even at a traffic stop, that ICE was going to put a hold on him. And so, this guy basically killing two police officers.
I don't mean to laugh at the killing of police officers. That is the tragic part of this. But I'm thinking, as you're describing this, Edwin, maybe California ought to get on the stick and pass a law making illegal immigrants illegal.
Yes, well, that would certainly help. And that's I actually, not to get too far afield from guns, but I actually saw an article this weekend where now the left is wanting to refer to it as the I word.
Oh, you got to be kidding me! Really?
Yes, just the vocalization of the word illegal carried with it a cultural and racial stigma that should be relegated to the same level as the N word.
Good grief! Folks, the reason why Edwin and I are having a conversation, and the reason why I think it's so funny, is that here we have again, it's another example of left-wing political correctness. The act of shooting police officers and killing police officers should draw outrage from across the country. It shouldn't draw outrage to the AR-15 that was used. It should have been directed at an individual who has been deported from this country, who should never have been here to begin with to pull the trigger. But he did. Because by very definition, his presence in this country was illegal. He was breaking the law. So what was another? Do you think he was going to adhere to California's strict gun laws? Of course he wasn't. He was in California with California's blessing to break the law. What if you don't enforce the little laws? The big ones don't get enforced either, and that's what these liberals just refuse to the lesson that liberals refuse to learn. Right, Edwin?
That is correct. And so, the news media, they'll do a dozen stories on 12-year-old Guatemalans, but, they will not give 1 inch of press to this obviously terrible tragedy. I mean, he killed 2 police officers. So this was not some guy who was just, caught with a gun or anything else. He committed 2 capital offenses with it.
And the liberal will say, then they will blame the gun rather than the fact that the illegal immigrant was here when he shouldn't have been, and that shows you how. Well, you know what? Savage says it's a mental disorder. You hear a lot of the other talk show hosts just basically outlining the insanity of what it is to be a liberal in this country, an extremist liberal Democrat in the vein of Barack Obama. And this is a perfect illustration of it. Edwin Walker from Texas Law Shield. Where can folks go to check out what it is that you guys do?
Well, they can either go to the website at www. I don't think you need to say that anymore, do you? TexasLawShield.com or USLawShield.com.
TexasLawShield.com. Edwin, it's always a pleasure. Come visit again, sir. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you later.